The Vatican, Jim Nicholson, says no religion should suffer this kind of denigration, and neither should Catholics. The Clinton campaign accuses Trump of colluding with Russia on these leaks. Former Trump advisor Roger Stone reportedly says he has back-channel communications with WikiLeaks, but does not coordinate with them. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, Bill Bennett. He served as Secretary of Education under President Reagan. He's the chairman of Conservative Leaders for Education. Bill, good to see you. So
thank you.
Jennifer Palmieri, I mean, this is her on the inner circle with Hillary Clinton now. And her statement today on whether she was caught red-handed bashing Catholics. Let's just play it again and let the audience make up their minds about whether this is a truth teller in this moment.
I said I didn't recognize it, but moreover, we are not checking, we're not going to fact check each of the emails that were stolen.
You tell me, Bill, your thoughts.
What'd she say? The Russians did it? The Catholics did it? The Pope did it? Look, this crowd has been anti-Catholic for a long time. This is leftist anti-Catholicism. These are transatlantic agnostic progressives. They do not believe in things like the authority of the Catholic Church. Now, as a conservative, I worry that the age of Clinton has been with us too long and may last even longer. But I got to tell you, I think the Catholic Church will outlast the Clintons, and I think it will be around when they are long gone. This notion of uprooting thousands of years of Catholic doctrine.
Revolution.
We know what this is about. Well, it's the Catholic teaching on marriage, on same-sex, on contraception, and most of all on abortion. They just can't stand that. Catholics, I hope, will take note of this. Their faith is being attacked, their faith is being disparaged, and they should react to it.
Can you imagine if this kind of talk were heard inside the Trump campaign about Islam?
I can't imagine, but if it were, heads would roll. They'd cut heads off, I imagine, in the proper fashion. But no, I mean, it would be crazy. Look, Michael Novak, a distinguished man, thinker, and Catholic, said there's one acceptable form of bigotry left in polite society in America, and that's anti-Christianity. And Catholicism, in its original form, is much hated. They would like to do away with it and its teaching. But others have tried, stronger parties have tried, and haven't prevailed against Rome.
Is she going to be able to get away with, I don't recognize that? That's a non-denial denial. I don't recognize it. Well, let me tell you, we put an email on the screen on Friday that we got fooled. It was a bogus one about Hillary allegedly calling some Bernie supporters buckets of losers, which we corrected immediately before the show ended. They were very quick to tell us when we had it wrong. They didn't call up and say, we don't recognize that one. They said, that's a fake, and it was our bad. We made a mistake. I don't recognize that as not a denial. And you tell me whether, given the amount of people involved in this exchange, including the campaign chair, they need to come out and apologize. Is it so hard? I mean, say what you will about Trump and the women, and he needed to apologize, but at least he made an effort.
Sure. He did. No, he did. He apologized, but they won't. Look, they'll stall. They're looking at the numbers. They like the way the numbers look. Just stall. Rope a dope. Run out the clock. Down the ball. Throw it out of bounds. They won't admit to any of this. But the more that comes out, the more we see the heart and soul of this party. This is identity politics, and this is the underbelly of identity politics. People who don't agree with us are backward. They need to be educated. We need a revolution. And boy, that may be coming with the reign of Hillary Clinton, should that, God forbid, occur.
Well, I got to ask you about that before I let you go, Bill, because you've been a very strong supporter of Donald Trump. You've been an honest guy. You've supported him, but you've admitted when he's misstepped. And this weekend, in the wake of that Access Hollywood tape, you tweeted out, or you said publicly, it's a shame, a crying shame, but he can't win. He should step down. I hate to say it, but it's over. Do you still believe that?
Well, it's not over. He's not stepping down. I feared it might be because of the play the media was giving it. I do think he responded to it well, and he had a good debate on Sunday night. Mine was an empirical judgment based on the facts, based on what I thought the media would do with it, and they have done that with it. And, of course, sex overcomes venality. It overcomes anti-religious, anti-Catholic bigotry. But I think the way that situation developed in the debate helped Donald Trump a lot. I thought at the moment that Mike Pence, as the head of the ticket, Mike prevail, might do better. But that's impossible now. Those ballots are out there. Stick with Trump. This is still possible. It's hard because of the way the thing has been played and because of Trump's mistakes, frankly, many of them. But when you listen to what the Clintons are up to, what this campaign is up to, and how intolerant and bigoted these people are, we can see what the stakes are, Megan.
Okay, and I got to squeeze this one in before I let you go. Back in the 90s, when Bill Clinton was being accused by all these women, your brother, Bob Bennett, a famous lawyer, was Mr. Clinton's defense lawyer. You were out there criticizing Bill Clinton. Your brother was out there defending him. It was an interesting dynamic. But what do you make now of Trump's attempt to resurrect the claims of Paula Jones and Juanita Broaddrick and Kathleen Willey?
I don't know how much impact it has. You got to remember, audio tape has a palpability to it. People hear it. They hear it over and over again. If you had audio tape or videotape of Bill Clinton with Juanita Broaddrick or with Monica Lewinsky or with Kathleen Willey, he wouldn't be standing up in public today. That's the age in which we live. That's the information age. I think you'd agree with that. But I'm not sure how much impact that has. People don't know what he's talking about when he talks about Bill Clinton. To many young people, this might as well have been the Middle Ages.
I feel old. I don't know about you, Bill. Good to see you. Go.
Good to see you, Megan. Always good to see you. Thank you.
All right, I love that. Also with us tonight, Julie Roginski, a Fox News contributor and Democratic analyst. Julie, good to see you.
Great to see you, Megan.
You know, you were on the show railing about that Star of David. It looked like a Star of David.
Yep.
Trump said it was a sheriff's star in one of his tweets that he retweeted calling her crooked Hillary. Do you see this as anti-Catholic bigotry by the Hillary camp?
Well, I see it as Catholics discussing what they consider to be a reformation in their church. And by the way, Pew just came out with a poll a few weeks ago saying exactly the same thing, that the attitudes of American Catholics, this is not a value judgment by me. I'm not Catholic. I certainly have no right to judge anybody in that sense. But what the majority of Catholics in this country feel seems to be very similar to what they're talking about and seems to be very dissimilar from what the Vatican is saying. I'll give you an example. 89% of American Catholics think that contraception is morally acceptable. 65% think employers shouldn't opt out of the law based on religious objection. You have 64 thinking homosexual behavior is not morally wrong. So if you look at those statistics, you look at the fact that the majority of American Catholics seem to agree with what Jen Palmieri and John Podesta seem to be saying in those emails.
You're being very charitable in your description of the emails, which are very pejorative in their tone. Very.
But they're pejorative, yes. I agree they're pejorative in their tone. I also agree that they're pejorative in their tone towards the hierarchy of the Catholic Church.
Also towards a couple of Latinos. Maybe you saw those where they referred, where there's in August of 2015, Podesta, the campaign chair, urged Mrs. Clinton to reach out to Latinos. The email subject was needy Latinos and one easy call. And he went on to list Frederico Pena, Bill Clinton's Secretary of Transportation, and former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson as the two needy Latinos she should woo.
Well, I don't know what sense he meant it. Are they Latinos that necessarily wanted to reach out to her and weren't getting the respect?
Characterization of the, the Latino, they're just the dismissiveness. Now, if you saw that in a Trump camp email, you'd be going nuts on them.
Megan, I have to say this. On Latinos, I agree with you. On the Catholic thing, it's a little different. And the reason I took such offense of the Star of David tweet is because that's my faith. That's what I believe, and that's what I know.
Look out for all that. I mean, if you defend one person of one religious belief and the attack on it, then you should be charitable toward all of them.
I'm charitable, as I said, towards the fact that this seems to me from polling, and again, not my personal view, but it seems to me from polling, the vast majority of American Catholics seem to agree with their view on where Catholicism should be.
You know what, but I'm Catholic. I've lived as a Catholic my whole life, but I haven't heard my fellow Catholics speak so snidely about our faith other than in this email.
Are they speaking snidely?
They talk about it in a way that's hopeful, that's maybe somewhat regretful, but not with disdain about our church and our beliefs.
I don't know that was seen as disdain, whether it was seen as a revolutionary.
They were mocking Rupert Murdoch for having the nerve to baptize his children Catholic.
That's different. They were mocking Rupert Murdoch, and that's, as you and I both would agree, that's not acceptable. But they're not mocking, I believe, is the Catholic Church where it is in America today. What they're saying is that the Catholic Church, and specifically the majority of Catholics...
You can't mock a man's decision to baptize his children.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
It's not mocking Catholicism or the church.
That's
what it is. That's why they raised it.
Different. I disagree with you on that. I think they mocked... There's no excuse to mock a man for practicing his faith the way he wants to practice it. Let's take Rupert Murdoch out of this equation. I think it's wrong to mock people who believe contraception is morally wrong. I think it's wrong. I'm pro-choice to mock people for their pro-life beliefs. What I do think there's a big difference here is that what they're saying is potentially and actually in step with what the majority of American Catholics believe. The tone
you already made that point. We already discussed that. Now you're repeating yourself. But the point is that these people who want Trump out there apologizing for everything he did, and he's taken a lot of criticism for not doing that. God forbid they said they don't even have to send Hillary out there. Why don't you send your director of communications out there to just own what she said and apologize to the millions of American Catholic voters who you're trying to solicit votes from in this election? I'm stealing the last word. I got to go.
See you later.
Love you, mean it. Bye. Well, as you heard at the top of the hour, not only does Team Clinton think that they know who's behind these hacks, they think Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin are working hand in hand with the Trump campaign. And there's a developing story on that accusation tonight. Carl Higbee and Nomiki Konst are next on the Cold War claims emerging in 2016. Plus, we'll have the breaking news on a series of ugly new allegations about Trump and women coming out this evening. See what the Trump campaign was on edge about all day today and what they're saying tonight.
He just came strolling right in. There was no second to put a robe on or any sort of clothing or anything. Some girls were topless, other girls were naked.
Suggesting the whole thing is about the Russians and the Trump camp, they claim, working together.
This whole effort is led by the Russians. The Russians, ones that orchestrated this hack.
Russian interference in this election and their apparent attempt to influence it on behalf of Mr. Trump is, I think, should be of utmost concern to all Americans.
And it's more than just the Clinton campaign. Now the White House is involved. Kevin Corke has more from Washington. Kevin?
Hey, Megan, good evening from the White House. Another near 1,200 emails dropped today by the website WikiLeaks. These belonging to blockbuster capital. And it's just the latest in the ongoing hacking controversy, which White House officials today said points squarely at the Russians. And while Press Secretary Josh Earnest wouldn't exactly say how the administration would respond, he did promise they would.
But what we surely will do is deploy all of the necessary resources to protect our system and to prevent the Russians from succeeding in their attempt to undermine our political system.
While Russian President Vladimir Putin said it doesn't matter who leaked the information, it's the content that's most important. Experts here at the White House were telling us today this is frankly a new page in the old KGB playbook.
The fact that they even can sow some distrust, which is precisely the Russian way. They used to refer to it as kompromat, or compromising information, or maskirovka, deceiving others of their activities. This is part and parcel of what we've seen KGB tradecraft during the Cold War.
Megan, Secretary of State John Kerry is expected to raise the...
Less than 1 week ago, Donald Trump was heard on video talking about groping women. And tonight, there is an explosive series of allegations from multiple women claiming that indeed it happened to them. Chris Steyerwalt and Dana Perino join us next on that breaking news. Plus, dramatic developments on the polling front. Can you spot it in this map here? Larry Sabato is here to explain. He'll tell us what this change means for Election Day. Don't go away.
Shows on Channel 114, plus every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
Breaking tonight, it's been just 5 days since we first saw the video revealing vulgar comments about women made by Donald Trump in 2005.
I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the... You can do anything.
That moment will become the subject of the very first question at the presidential debate just 2 days later, when Mr. Trump was pressed by the moderator, Anderson Cooper.
Have you ever done those
women
things?
Have respect for me, and I will tell you, no, I have not.
Now the Republican nominee is facing new scrutiny tonight as several women come forward claiming they are victims of his sexual advances. First, Jessica Leeds comes forward tonight, who says she was on a flight more than 30 years ago with Trump, wound up sitting next to the young businessman in first class of a commercial air flight.
It wasn't until they cleared the meal, that somehow or another, the armrest in the seat disappeared. And it was a real shock when all of a sudden his hands were all over me. He was like an octopus. It was like he had 6 arms. He was all over the place. And if he had stuck with the upper part of the body, I might not have gotten that upset. But it's when he started putting his hand up my skirt, and that was it.
Another woman, Rachel Crooks, also speaking out to the New York Times, saying upon meeting Donald Trump in his building, she was just 22 years old, he, quote, kissed me directly on the mouth. She was a secretary at the time. Those accusations echoing the claim made by the former Miss Utah, Temple Taggart, who earlier this year recalled being kissed by Trump without consent, saying, quote, he kissed me directly on the lips. I thought, oh my God, gross. We're also learning, just as we come to air, that a Florida woman has now come forward, claiming to have been groped by Mr. Trump 13 years ago. She claims that he grabbed her backside against her consent. Joining me now, Chris Stirewalt and Dana Perino, co-hosts of Perino and Stirewalt. I'll tell you what, good to see you both. So, I mean, they say that, listening to him at that debate, say that it was just words and he never actually did that stuff he claimed to be doing on the bus, made them come forward, these latest 3. Stirewalt, put it in perspective politically what this means.
Well, look, we now have a perspective on why Trump took the bellicose attitude that he did in that debate on the subject. Instead of being contrite, he was on the attack and presented Bill Clinton's accusers from the 1990s and before against him. We now see why. The why is that they expected this, that they knew that this is going to be a race to the bottom and that there were going to be more allegations and more accusations of misconduct against Trump. So they're trying to steel themselves by bringing back these women from Bill Clinton's past.
And there's another woman named Tasha Dixon, who was part of the Miss Teen USA pageant, who gave an interview today, and here's what she alleged. Listen.
He just came strolling right in. There was no second to put a robe on or any sort of clothing or anything. Some girls were topless, other girls were naked. Our first introduction to him was when we were at the dress rehearsal and half naked, changing into our bikinis. I'm telling you, Donald Trump owned the pageant for the reason to utilize his power to get, around beautiful women.
Now, that's just an allegation, but it does track with what Trump himself told Howard Stern back in 2005. Listen.
Well, I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. Right. I want to make sure that like everything is good. You're there. Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Dana?
So this is a pattern, right? So he says that, he says to Billy Bush, he has said to Howard Stern, is that he loves being a star. Because when you're a star, you get to do things that, even if he's not actually doing them, right? He's like talking about it and bragging about it. And then his excuse is that, well, men do this and men talk like this in the locker room, which there's been a lot of men who have come forward and said, no, we don't. The Trump supporters and the Trump campaign tonight has said that this New York Times story is completely false. And they're questioning the timing of it.
And threatening to sue the New York Times.
They are. Here's the thing about that, though. They are expecting now for everybody that will be seeing these interviews with these women to not believe them. And one of the things they say in their statement is, how dare you reach back decades and look at possible sexual assaults from way before? Like, how could it matter? But the problem is, that's exactly what they are asking people to do when they're looking at Bill Clinton and having the women who have made allegations against Bill Clinton at the debate and doing events with them and doing interviews. I mean, now it's like they're trying to just muddy the waters. I don't know if I agree with Stirewalt that they knew this was coming, partly because of the angry denial that you hear Donald Trump make to the New York Times when he's on the phone with the reporter, calling her a disgusting human being for even reporting the story.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go psychological on you, but they say anger is closely related to fear. So, there. I've become Dr. Phil. Let's speak about this in the larger sense. And I do want to underscore that Trump has denied these allegations. Yeah. They're both campaigns are in a pickle because the Clinton camp wants to say, these women who accused Bill Clinton, he was never found guilty. They never had a successful lawsuit. It was 30 years ago. Well, these women, they never had a lawsuit, and the truth is that victims of sexual assault, victims of rape, victims of unwanted groping, they often don't come forward. They're humiliated, especially back in the day. They were told, move along, it happens to all women, you got to take it. It's a complicated
because it would hurt your career.
That's right. It's a complicated situation. Though, I mean, the 22-year-old secretary in Trump Tower is like, it's Donald Trump, right?
She calls her sister. It's
not to say it's real. I don't know whether it happened or not. I'm just saying these matters are complicated. But what's not complicated, Starwalt, is how disgusting so many people feel about this election season and how grossed out they are by it. A feeling that was encapsulated by John Oliver a couple of nights ago. Watch. And it's true when you hear these allegations.
Fact check, mostly true.
And honestly, on Twitter the other day, there was a picture of somebody, at a Trump rally wearing a shirt that talked about the C word and Hillary Clinton. And there's been a few of these. And it just makes you feel bad.
Like somewhere Alexander Hamilton is weeping into some sort of a kerchief. Yes.
He's like, remember back in the day when we did it correct, we just shot each other.
And just shot each other in Weehawken, New Jersey.
He's no one to judge, although he did die.
He did die. He definitely died. Look, the thing for Trump is he has a choice. The political playbook says now go destroy these women. The women have come forward to make allegations. Now go destroy them, discredit them, say they're liars, say they're crazy, say they're psychos, rip them apart. Unfortunately, the gambit that they and their campaign manager used was to try to shame Hillary Clinton for destroying the women who accused her husband.
Interesting
So
point.
they have put themselves in a heck of a box here because they need to destroy the credibility of these women, but it is the destroying of women's credibility that they're trying to hoist Hillary Clinton on.
Meantime, before Dana, the polls that came out, this Marquette University poll out of Wisconsin today just shows a cratering with the women. Look at this. Saturday and Sunday, look at the gender gap there that grew as the tape took hold, right? It hit on Friday, and it was 60% of women for Clinton, 33% for Trump, and it had been 45-36 just the day before, a closer margin. And then it evened out over Saturday and Sunday to 56-23. If you look at the gender gap in all the states, the 538 blog put this together today, and you can see, she's killing him with women. He's beating her with men. You can see this, but his numbers he doesn't have as big a margin. Her margin with women is getting scary for him.
And I think there's probably a lot of women who thought, I would never vote for Hillary Clinton, who are being presented with that choice. The other thing that's very interesting in terms of a statistic, and the Trump campaign has known this from the beginning, and so has the Hillary campaign. In 2016, the entire electorate of eligible voters, 31% are single women. Okay, and that is going to continue to grow. So when we have the big fight after the election about what the Republican Party is going to look like going forward, that obviously has to be a consideration, because that is not going to change.
Right. The women, they're everywhere now, as it turns out. And they can vote.
Wait a minute, what?
All that crap about equality. No, that's not what we do. Okay. I haven't seen any of the questions either, which is sad because I'd like to. Anyway, 27 days to go, and the electoral prediction map is shifting yet again. Larry Sabato is here on the red states, the blue states, and the state of the race next. 27 days to go, and tonight, a state that has voted Republican in every single presidential election since 1964 is now a toss-up. In a surprise development to some, Utah is now up for grabs on November 8th, according to the Fox News Decision Desk. We have Dr. Larry Sabato with us tonight on what the change means for Election Day, but first, we turn to Trace Gallagher to crunch the numbers. Trace?
Megan, the primary reason Utah is now a toss-up is because Donald Trump is very unpopular with Mormons, who make up 60% of the state's voters. For the record, Hillary Clinton isn't exactly loved in Utah, which is why Evan McMullen is polling almost even with both Trump and Clinton. McMullen is an independent, BYU grad, and a Mormon. We should note this poll is from Y2 Analytics, and it's the only Utah poll released so far that was taken after the Trump-Billy Bush tape was released. And one poll says 94% of Utahns have seen or heard about the tape. In August, Trump had a double-digit lead in Utah. And for Trump, Utah is the canary in the coal mine. The last time the state voted Democrat was Lyndon Johnson in 1964, and now it's anyone's game. But even without Utah, the Fox News decision team says if Hillary Clinton wins the state's rated solid Democrat, along with the state's leaning Democrat, she'd come out with 307 electoral votes. She only needs 270 to win the presidency. If Trump wins the solid Republican states, along with the states currently seen as leaning Republican, he would still only have 181 electoral votes. Here's the bigger problem for Trump. Even if you give him all the toss-up states, that still only puts him at 231 electoral votes, which means not only is Utah a must-win for Trump, he would also have to steal some states that currently lean Democrat. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now with more, the director of UVA's Center for Politics, Larry Sabato. Great to see you, Doc. So let's talk about Utah, first of all. Is that real? Could that actually go Democrat?
Well, when I saw it about 5 a.m. this morning, Megan, I figured my eyes weren't focusing.
Right.
And once I realized those really were the numbers, I thought a bunch of excess Californians had moved into Utah.
They got lost.
Utah... Exactly. They got lost and wandered in the desert. Utah, as Trace just said, reliably Republican, and we're talking about 70% Republican. Ronald Reagan used to get over 70% in Utah. So it's a shock. I always say this, Megan, I want to see confirmation. This is the first poll that shows it being effectively a three-way tie, and you always have questions, particularly when an independent does this well, though there are reasons. He is a Mormon, BYU grad, and clearly the Mormon population is not terribly keen on Donald Trump. And, of course, Mitt Romney, who has a lot of influence in Utah, is not either.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting. Mitt Romney didn't make much of an impact when he came after Trump in the primaries, but perhaps he's playing a role in denying him those electoral votes now. Meantime, you say Florida, Ohio, and Arizona, another state that's usually red, are likely or safe Republican now. Do you believe that? Do you believe Florida and Ohio are safe Republican?
Oh, no. Our map has Florida leaning to Clinton, Ohio leaning to Clinton. We still have Arizona with Donald Trump, but I have to tell you,
my notes are wrong here.
Privately, some of the trackings for both Arizona and Georgia are suggesting that Clinton is very competitive in both of those states. If Trump loses either one of them, he's cooked and done.
He can't lose. Wait, either one of which?
Arizona and Georgia. Arizona and Georgia. Florida, of course, he's done if he loses Florida,
yes,
but
right.
Already Clinton has a lead there. The average is about 3.5, 4 points in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
She's ahead a little bit in North Carolina. She's ahead a little bit in Ohio in the polling average. They can still change. But, I'd be concerned if I were on the Trump camp about some of these red states, not just Utah, but also Arizona and Georgia.
Mm-hmm, because now the Priorities USA Super PAC is actually moving beyond the race for the White House. They're targeting more the other races, focused on the Senate and so on. And some Democrats are saying, well, they're extremely confident they're going to capture control of the Senate because everybody's going to go to the polls, they believe, to support Hillary. Do you believe that? Do you believe...